Are you ready, Robert? Yeah. Okay, go ahead. Ready to go. Okay. Good afternoon and welcome to our 2020 Meet the Candidates Forum. A little unusual venue today, but we're going to make the best of it. Actually, we should call it Meet the New Board Members Forum since they're running unopposed. The format for today will have each candidate introduce himself, speak for about 5 minutes on why they're running for the board, then have a list of questions that were submitted by email, and we'll go over those, ask the candidates those, and then finally close up with some closing statements. And so, and I also want to say thanks to Janet and Brian for signing up to do this. People really do appreciate the fact that you're willing to volunteer your time. It's not an easy job. I'm sure it's stress-filled and takes up a lot of your time. So thanks very much for doing this. My name is Jim Grodnick. I'm the moderator today. All right, let's lead off. Janice, do you want to start off?
Sure.
Tell us what you're about.
All right. Thank you, Jim. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in today, and we hope you enjoy the content of today's forum. My name is Janet Garrity-Saucier. My husband, Les, and I moved here I'm sorry, I need to move a little closer to the mic. My husband, Les, and I moved to Connestee Falls in September of 2017. We love living here. We are both professional photographers. We find that Connestee Falls is one of the most beautiful places to live in Western North Carolina. So I'm running for the board, or I am joining the board because I want to support the short-term and long-term experience of living here in Connestee, both from a ownership point of view, but also as a member of the association, I want to continue to support others who live here. I think that Connestee is worth my time and my efforts to be on the board. So how it came about was that two very good friends that have lived here for a long time came to me separately and really encouraged me to step up and be on the board. And their reason was that they feel that I have a lot of common sense and clear thinking, problem solving skills, but also it coincides with this year's Big 5 points. And one of those is to build Connestee's brand. And I have 21 years of experience in brand marketing. And I'm very excited to be able to bring that about and help the association define who Connestee is from a brand marketing standpoint and implement a brand marketing program, because the ultimate benefit of having a strong, stable brand is that it will increase the perceived value of Connestee Falls as a place to live, and it will ultimately increase the property values, would be the goal.
And thank you. And Brian?
Good afternoon to everyone. This is a rather strange experience, addressing an almost empty room. So it's a little bit odd for all of us to do this. I moved to Connestee with my wife, Rachel, almost exactly 3 years ago. We came from South Florida and moved to the beautiful mountains around here, and found that this was probably the best thing that we had done in a very long time. We absolutely love it here. The people in this area are wonderful. All of the outdoor activities, the community is a wonderful place. When we moved here, I knew that I wanted to become active within the community. Being a property owners association, I knew that it would be important for this whole experience to be run properly and continue to be run the way it has been. The existing management has established a wonderfully robust and strong foundation financially for our community, and it's very important for that to continue. So to start off my involvement with the community, I joined the Strategic Planning Committee, which I've done almost 3 years now. My term there will be up in August, with the intention of someday being able to be onto the board. So my wishes for that are now fulfilled with this opportunity. Being on strategic planning, I've become very familiar with the operations of the community, the future planning. I participated in the development of the strategic plan, demographics report to the board, and most recently, the comprehensive master plan. My desire to be on the board is to be able to continue those efforts, what we've done, and see them through to fruition, to continue the growth that we've had and see that the foundation is laid for a very strong future for the community.
Thank you, Brian. The first question is going to pertain to visitors using the amenities. This was several letters came in on this one, emails, and I'm going to read you a few sample quotes from it. I live near Outagai Park. I'm unable to enjoy the park over the weekends. There were 24 visitor cars there at one point last Saturday. Over 20 young people were on one small dock. Apparently people can pass a barcode from one car to another. And here's, last 3 times I've been to the park, there was a large group of young people and their families enjoying the swimming area and docks. None of the cars have resident stickers. One is a former employee who has not worked here for 2 years. That was mentioned twice. And last Sunday, I drove by Outagai Park and saw 15 adults and children gathered around the picnic tables, 6 cars, and only one had a Connestee Renters sticker on it. So, et cetera, et cetera. So there'd be a 2-part question. Do you see a need to make policy changes regarding unaccompanied guests using our amenities? And 2, what recommendations do you have for making changes in the current security system? Brian, I'll let you lead off with this one.
I've heard that complaint numerous occasions. I know that we do have rules and regulations concerning access to the property. I think first and foremost that we need to look at the enforcement of those rules and regulations and work on ways to keep people from possibly piggybacking coming through the gates. Unfortunately, if we have families that are either living here or renting here and they have visitors come in that don't have stickers on the car, it's not necessarily evident that they don't belong here. but enforcing the rules at the gates is certainly a first step. How an employee with an old sticker got into the property is kind of a mystery to me, because I think all of the old stickers had been decommissioned at one point. So it's possible that you may see somebody like that. I understand that one employee that was mentioned lives with her grandmother on the property, so is actually in fact a resident. So it's not always clear that what appears to be a violation at first view actually is. We need to be understanding and understand that there are certain circumstances where people without stickers on their cars can come onto the property and be invited as guests of our residents. I myself have family that lives in Cedar Mountain that I invite to come over here and visit us and spend time with us. They don't have stickers on the car, and I hope that they don't ever get confronted by someone questioning whether they belong here or not.
Thank you. And Janet?
Someone contacted me with a similar email a few days ago, so I did a little bit of research into what is happening with our security and access. And what I've been told is that any random checks that have taken place have verified that the people here are legitimately here. They have reason to be here, permission to be here. One of the things that's happening right now because of COVID is that dashboard passes are not being handed out at the gates. And that's a COVID situation. So going to car and looking for a pass is not going to reveal anything. But our records and the cameras are recording who is coming in at the gates. I also learned that that there are families here living with our residents because of COVID. So that has brought in a different demographic, new faces. But we've also changed here in our demographic of who our residents are. There's more diversity here in the amount of time that the residents have lived here. The age of our residents has become more diverse, and the retirement status has changed. And how people are using our amenities, I think, is showing because of that. So we're also, I think, all experiencing unfamiliar faces. And again, some of that may be because of COVID, but some of it may be because as new residents come in, they look different than we do. So I would encourage people to take into account that during this COVID situation, we all have a heightened awareness of who's around us. And if you have a question, if you feel that someone shouldn't be here, to report that, call security, call the administration office if it's during the week, and look into it, because as Brian said, there are people that belong here, and we would hate for people to be confronted by other residents and say, hey, what's your business here? Also, because there's more people living in Connestee, things are becoming more crowded. And when we have beautiful summer weather, I live on Lake Atagahi. I know how busy that park becomes. So I would encourage people to have some tolerance. And if you do feel that something is amiss, go through the channels and report it, because just sending out an email doesn't solve the problem or get to the bottom of the situation. But I, as a board member, upcoming board member, I'm not yet, will be learning a lot. And I'd like to talk with the other board members and our general manager about what can the gatehouse system actually do. We have residents who are calling in permanent passes for people. Well, is that a permanent 7-day-a-week, 24/7 pass, or can we put some limitations on that? And, you know, in terms of renters and coming in and having a party at a pavilion at the park, the only pavilion I've learned that has to be reserved is the one at Lake Atagahi. So if someone wants to go use the pavilion at any of our other lakes, they can do that. First come, first serve. So maybe we need to look at a broader reservation system. And I think that people just, I think we just need more information. And as a board member, I will look into that.
Okay, thank you, Janet. Next, since you mentioned the virus, what is your opinion about how the administration has handled the virus and its impact here? You go ahead this time, Janet.
Okay. Well, that's a great question. And my husband and I both feel that the administration has done an amazing job in helping us feel comfortable. We turn to each other almost every day and say, we are so blessed to be here during this pandemic. And we feel very, very safe here. And the administration has enabled that. We can go out and hike. We can walk on the berm. People are listening to the recommendations coming from Jim Whitmore, and the communication channels, I think, have been excellent.
Thanks. And Brian?
I agree with everything that Janet has said here. I think that we are extremely lucky that the impact on us has really been a lot less than in a lot of other areas. The fact that we do have the hiking trails and can get out and about and don't have to stay hunkered down in our homes has been a real boon, I think, to everyone's sanity. The administration here and Jim and all of the staff have done an amazing job keeping food flowing from the clubhouse with the curbside service has been great. I think they've done an excellent job with that. But I do look forward to the days when the grill is open and the dining room is open full time and we can come up and have a draft beer in the lounge. But I'm trusting Jim and his staff to make the right decisions and keeping us safe so that we don't have to worry about an outbreak within Connestee.
Thank you. And then I'll go right back to you, Brian. What is your position on construction of a new activity and wellness center?
I would love to see us have a new activity and wellness center. The board progress on that was through the proposal stage. There's nothing that's been set in concrete, all puns intended. But there's a long way to go with that, and it's certainly not something that should be undertaken until the financial feasibility of it has been well established, and we won't know that for quite some time until the pandemic has settled itself and we know where that stands and what the financial situation of the POA is. It's a great idea. I think it's something that's needed, but if we can't afford it, it's certainly not something that we should do. I know that members are very debt averse. I myself am very debt averse. So I think keeping it on a holding pattern for now until things settle down is definitely the prudent decision.
Thanks. And Janet?
I'm very pleased that we did not start the Activities and Wellness Center prior to COVID, because I think we would all be extremely stressed right now if construction had started. And I think that Connestee is taking a conservative approach right now. I am all for an Activities and Wellness Center. I've done yoga here on the floor in the Cherokee room. So I would love to have a dedicated yoga studio. And I know there's a lot of people that want different amenities when it comes to their health and physical activities. So I'm very excited about it and I do support it. I just want to be very careful going forward because we don't know what things are going to look like coming out of COVID. Will we need to continue to have social distancing, and how will that impact any architectural and engineering plans for an activities and wellness center? So I think, you know, we had the one proposal in January and it was a draft almost. The next step was a plan to present a second proposal to our members after the seasonal residents returned. So that would, I think what the board and the general manager will probably do is once we know where we are with COVID, and that may mean we have to wait till there's a vaccine, or there's one in sight. And also, what is the economy going to do this fall? All of these things are going to impact, even our home sales. What will our home sales look like going forward? So I think we just have to take a wait and see and hope for the best, and possibly in 2021, get back on it. And, I look at it as a delay, not the demise of A&W.
Thank you. As long as we're talking about real estate values, here's a question submitted by one of our members. It appears that real estate is undervalued in our community. The comparable house to my house in the town of Brevard would probably be $100,000 more from what I've seen, without being accompanied by the wonderful amenities that we have here. Do you think the major contributing factor to the depressed valuations is probably the high buy-in fee? What is your position on freezing the sum at its current $8,000, Jen?
I don't have the same impression that the person who wrote that question. I don't have the impression that the housing at Connestee Falls is undervalued. I would have to look into that. And I noted the use of the word probably.
Mhm.
I think we need more information before we could address his assumptions that his home here is worth less than the one in the town of Brevard or in the city of Brevard. So I can't really address that. Freezing our amenities fee buy-in on a new home sale, I believe that's the question he's asking. I think that all depends on budgeting and where our needs are. That fee, that $8,000 goes into our amenity fund, and the amenity fund is where things like the activity and wellness center are going to come from. So we have to balance it.
Mhm. Brian?
All of those things are true. I do want to point out that the questioner noted that their house is worth $100,000 less than a home in Brevard. If you factor in the $8,000 amenity fee, it's still priced at $92,000 less than a home in Brevard, which makes it still quite a bargain. The fact that we are outside of town, there are some older homes within Connestee that sell for less, smaller homes. Property values are based on comps, what the comparable property values are. And the association really has no control over that whatsoever. The $8,000 amenity fee does provide the funding for our amenities. That's what that name's from. So if we don't collect that money when homes are sold, then it's got to come from someplace else. And that would probably come out of the pockets of the existing homeowners. I think that when we bought our house here, that $8,000 amenity fee was not even a consideration when we looked around the property to see what was here and what we were getting for that. We're certainly not rich people, and $8,000 to me is a lot of money, but for what we get for that money, it's a bargain, and it has never come up that I know of in surveys with prospective buyers and new homeowners. So I really don't think it's an issue.
Thanks. What do you think can be done to, if anything, decrease the deficits in golf and in food and beverage, Brian?
I know that management in the club, Jim and his staff, keep a very, very tight rein on those things. I know that Dave Hunter, in a lot of his talks to the membership, has emphasized that it's a value creation proposition with properties like ours and property owners associations. And the amount of money that we spend on food and beverage and golf is markedly lower than what it is in comparable communities that we have seen. We really can't expect those entities to be profit making. They're not set up for that. Our community's not set up for that. We need to look at it as what it is. It is an amenity. We don't expect our lakes and our trails and our parks to provide a profit. We don't look to see how much money they lose every year. And we should not look at the food and beverage and golf any differently, as long as they are very tightly managed. And I do believe that they are.
Thank you. Here's a more general question. What is your opinion about how the community of Connestee Falls is perceived by the rest of Transylvania County? Brian?
I think that we are perceived as being something of an elite community, being gated. It's a perception that I don't think is deserved. We've all heard anecdotal conversations about Connestee residents maybe misbehaving in town, but I think if you look at the volunteerism that comes from Connestee Falls into Transylvania County, it is absolutely enormous, and there's an enormous benefit to the community. I do feel strongly that we don't do a good enough job of tooting our own horn in that respect, and that we don't do as good a job as we should in participating in the county and Brevard government to the respect we can to do that and to let people know what we contribute to the surrounding community.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. And Janet?
This is an interesting question because it plays back to what is Connestee's brand. A real brand involves every touch point with its customer, with its audiences. And if you look at the community of Brevard and Transylvania County as one of our audiences, then how we treat people when we go into town speaks to the Connestee Falls brand and who we are. If we're rude and short and uppity and act like we're a privileged amount of people, a privileged group of people, then I can see why there would be resistance or resentment for the outsiders from Connestee coming in. But if we treat people how we want to be treated, and we are friendly and we communicate all the good things about Connestee, as Brian said, maybe we haven't communicated well enough of how much time, money, and effort Connestee residents put into the community, but not do it with an attitude, do it with a sense of we love living here and we're supporting our community. Mm-hmm. So maybe we need to turn it around a little bit, and also think about to go back to the security question, to also think about when there are guests here in our community. If you were a guest in someone else's community, how would you want to be treated? I'm a big believer in love thy neighbor as love thyself. So if we, as a community, as part of the Connestee Falls brand, can represent ourselves positively to the community, I think any negative perceptions can be worn down.
Mm-hmm.
Can I add something to that, Jim?
No, I'm go ahead.
I just wanted to add Janet's comments there with the branding. Each and every one of us needs to remember when we leave the gates of this community that we are a brand ambassador for this community, and we individually represent the community, and our actions represent the entire community, and it affects the perceptions of what the people outside of our gates are going to think of us. So each and every one of us needs to behave with that thought in mind.
Okay, and what would you give top priority to for your term on the board? What is the most important to you, Brian?
Whether it's my term on the board or anyone else's term on the board, the financial stability and foundation of the community should always be a top priority. Without having a firm financial foundation, things can go sideways very, very quickly. So that's something that always needs to be watched carefully, and we need to make sure that we have people that are very knowledgeable in finances, both in administration and the board and permanent committees, to keep a very close eye on that.
Thanks. Janet?
And I agree with Brian. That has to be a guiding light, fiscal responsibility. The board needs to always hold that close. But for personally, I will go back to the brand development. Being one of the big five, that's where I want to put a lot of my time and effort. I'm not a financial wizard, but there are people here who are. And I think a diverse board is a much stronger board. So if everybody on the board had the same talents, I think we would be selling the association short. So I'm looking forward to bringing in some new talent, some new thinking. And I'm also very interested in our forest management. I grew up in upstate New York. I spent a lot of time in the Adirondack Mountains almost every summer. My family still has a camp there that my grandfather bought in 1939. So coming to these mountains, to me, in a big way, is like coming home. But I learned an appreciation for forest management all my growing up years, and saw how beautiful things can be when they're managed well. So that's a second spot that's very important to me.
Thank you. The next one concerns, there are some instances around the lakes of people flying political sentiments on flags that they're not visible from the street, but they're visible from the lake. And the question is, what are your views, and would you work to make revisions to remove all political signage around the lakes that will be viewed by visitors and members? Janet.
Okay. Well, North Carolina state law supersedes in this case, and the law in our state allows for political signs on private property and during certain times of the year. So we can't ban them if that sign is on private property. If someone should put a political sign out by the street, yes, we can take that down because that's in the right of way. And certainly no one can put any political propaganda out in the common areas. But on their own private property, it can't be banned. What I would say, not speaking for anyone other than myself, is that we should be sensitive to each other. Who are you campaigning to would be the question if you're putting out a political sign. Is it doing more harm than good? So again, love thy neighbor as you love thyself, and treat other people kindly with respect, and try not to offend other people with your politics, I guess would be my bottom line.
I'm working on that. Brian?
I agree with most of what Janet said. We don't have a whole lot of control over what people can do. And political sensitivities as to what you're actually accomplishing by doing these things, if it's offending your neighbor. The best way to move your cause forward is not necessarily to poke your neighbor in the eye with a stick. So are you really representing what you want to with your political viewpoints, or are you doing damage to them by doing things that everybody else may find offensive? And it doesn't matter whether that's one party, the other party. Be sensitive to your neighbors and try to get along with everybody.
Thank you. Moving along to something completely different. Connestee Falls Water and Sewer Utility has an exorbitant number of water leaks and sewer spills. Can they be replaced or forced to provide, they, I guess, being the water provider, can they be replaced or forced to provide more maintenance to reduce or lessen the amount of water and sewer interruptions? It seems like we get several of these each month. Brian.
I know that we used to get more sewage leaks into the lakes than we have recently, although the timing on my answer to this is not the best since we've just recently had one. I do know that they have upgraded the pump stations. They've done a lot of work on that. That's continuing. They've done cameras through the pipes to survey those and find out what's going on with it. There's a new sewage pumping or treatment station outside of the gates that I think is getting close to completion. As far as replacing them, that really does not seem like a tenable solution. There is not competition. It is a utility. It is certainly not something that Connestee Falls would like to undertake themselves. That would just be disastrous for us to do that. The Utilities Commission is one place that we have to go with that. I do believe that our management and board do communicate with the utilities that service us. It's an old system, and they are working on maintaining and upgrading the facilities that we have.
Thanks. Did you answer that one?
No,
drifted
but
away.
I
Go ahead.
honestly can't add a thing that Brian hasn't already said. I was sitting here thinking that was such a full answer. There's nothing more to add to that. Thank you for
Okay.
asking, though.
All righty. What limits, if any, should be placed on the board's and management's ability to fund projects within Connestee Falls without a membership vote? Janet, take that one.
Well, as best as I understand at this time, and I will admit I will be learning a lot more once I'm on the board about this, I believe in our formal documents, there are limitations set on the board and the general manager for spending without a member vote. So I'm going to reference our declaration, our rules and regulations, our associations rules for that information. I'm remembering it's a figure, perhaps a 350,000, but I would reference that answer to our rules.
Mm-hmm. Brian.
Our governing documents do limit what the board and management can spend without membership approval. I would guess that you couldn't pick any particular number and keep everybody happy with it. Some people are going to say that it's too much money no matter how much it is. So the current amounts seem to be reasonable. They're not excessive, and they are in our governing documents, and the board does abide by those rules.
Thank you. Janet mentioned diversity, and here's a question related to that. Is diversity broadly defined within Connestee Falls desirable? And if so, how can Connestee Falls increase the diversity of ownership within Connestee Falls? Brian?
Diversity, to me, definitely is desirable. I think that we should do everything that we can to encourage diversity. And Janet, that's going to be part of what you're going to looking at with branding and making sure that our brand is welcoming to everyone. We do have an unusual situation in Transylvania County where minority populations are a very small percentage of the total population, but we do draw from other states and geographic areas, and where we aim our brand and our advertising should encourage diversity within the community.
Thanks. And Janet?
Yes, absolutely. As I mentioned before, I think diversity of whether it's your age or it's your gender or it's your race, all of us come to a situation with different ideas, different experiences, different ways of thinking. And I think properly managed, properly addressed, it would make us a stronger community. If we were all alike, I would find it completely boring, to tell you the truth. But we would also not have the amenities that we have, because people would either outgrow or outage the amenity. What if someone came here and said, well, I want to have bocce, or I want to have pickleball, and the rest of the population said, no, we can't be that diverse. We're a golf community. That's all we're going to be. So I think diversity going forward is really important. Does that mean we're going to open the gates and everybody's going to come flooding in? Absolutely not. There's still going to be some barriers here, whether it be in real estate prices, or we don't offer the amenities someone offers, or we're not in the right location. As a marketer, I would like to one day be able to find out why people decide not to buy in Connestee Falls. I think that information would be as helpful to us as what we learn when we do the resident surveys. Why you did come here, but why don't people come here? So yes, I think diversity is extremely important.
Thank you. And here's a pretty specific question here. Would it be possible to set up a group Comporium cable internet contract in which Connestee Falls participants pay their cable/internet fee as part of the annual dues payment? Comporium would bill Connestee Falls Administration Office monthly or quarterly at a discounted fee for all participating owners. We are thinking that Comporium might find admin savings and reduce accounts receivable by billing one location for a large bundle. What do you think about that, Brian?
I have no idea whether Comporium would be open to such a thing. Being a year-round resident, I certainly would love to spread my expenditures for cable and internet across all of the homes in Connestee. The part-time and seasonal people may not like that quite as much. I don't know how you would balance the fees across that. Plus, there are so many different things that you can get with that. You've got security, you've got telephone, you've got internet, you've got all of the various services and premium channels and things, and I don't know how you could possibly equitably spread the services and the costs across all of the members of the community. If it was for just basic services, once again, how do you split up the costs and equitably distribute that amongst full-time and part-time residents? Yeah. It's something that might be possible. I don't know if they've ever done it. It would certainly be worth asking the question of Comporium.
Thank you. Janet?
I agree with Brian. I have no idea how Comporium would react to such an approach, but it would certainly have to be a win-win. Comporium is not going to, as any business, is not going to put money on the table for its customers and say, here, take this. But I agree with Brian. I think logistically, it would not be something that Comporium or our members would want to look at seriously, because we are all different users. For an example, we don't have a landline in our house. And after the first 2 years, when Comporium gives you your introductory package, our television rates went up so high, we canceled our television. And we now use our internet strictly for streaming entertainment, television programs, movies, whatever. So I'm a different user than the people that live next door to me. And so I don't see how we could all find a common denominator there.
Right. Thank you. Do you envision the possibility of an indoor lap pool and sauna once the virus dies down? Janet?
That sounds like that would be wonderful. As a vision, I don't have a full vision of the Activities and Wellness Center at this time. It's really going to come down to what do we want to invest as a community in activities and wellness center? What are the amenities that we want to offer the community? And I think we have to look at the overall community. Yes, I think it would be awesome for some of our members to have a sauna and a lap pool. I don't know what the logistics are behind that, but I will be learning about that in the days ahead of here. So I am not against such a thing by any means.
What do you think, Brian?
I'd love to see an indoor lap pool and sauna. I think it'd be a wonderful thing. But there are two components to undertaking a project like that. One is the construction costs of doing that and building those things. But then there's the ongoing costs of maintaining those facilities and types of things. Those things have to be paid for. There's an awful lot of residents here who are very sensitive already to our annual assessments, and adding something like that to our amenities is going to increase the cost. How much, I have no idea. I do know that studies with other communities that maintaining indoor facilities like that are substantial. And I don't know if it's really worth that. There are other ways to go about doing it, trade-offs with better heating on a pool, maybe a canopy that could cover it to facilitate a longer season. But a totally indoor facility with a building and everything else that goes with keeping that up seems to be pretty expensive. But we don't have any idea at this point in time just how expensive, and that certainly is something that I would want to see put forth before the membership.
Thank you. In your review of the annual budgets, do any red flags stand out? Do you think there are areas where if you don't feel the spending is warranted? Brian?
I can't think of anything offhand. There are amenities that I use. There are amenities that I don't use. I do not resent having to pay for the amenities that I don't use, because I know that people are in a situation where they're paying for some that they don't use that I do. The only red flag that I have is really not a negative red flag. When I look at the budget and I look at what our employment costs are for all of our staffing here, I sometimes am a little bit ashamed because they're so low. I don't know that we're treating our employees the way that we should.
Thanks. And Janet?
Yes, again, I repeat, I will mimic what Brian has just said. I don't find any red flags. what I do see is that the cost of good employees is going to increase, and we are increasing what we're spending. I think we're being a better employer than maybe Connestee has been in the past. But we're just in a very competitive market for quality people. And that's part of the experience of being here at Connestee Falls, whether we are golfers and how the staff in the golf shop is able to assist you, or it's in the wellness center, or more frequently for everyone in the restaurants. So that is an important area that we have to keep investing in for our own benefits. But I think the budget is what it has to be. We have to have reserves. We have to plan ahead for equipment needs. You know, if we have one of these wonderful large lawn mowers break down, it's not like going to Lowe's to pick up a push mower. So we have to plan for those capital expenses. And we also have to maintain our infrastructure. We have lots of roads here, and we are taking good care of them. But every once in a while, you see where the edge of the road is collapsed. We have to take care of those things. So the budget, I think, addresses those needs.
Thank you.
I'd like to
Right.
make an addition to that. I did think of something that I hadn't thought of before. There are assets that we have that have a lifespan longer than 30 years. And at this point in time, we don't have reserves for those things. I know that the board is addressing that right now, and it is something that needs to be addressed because we are at some point in time going to have to replace those things. And we have to figure out how those things are going to get paid for when the bill collector comes around and says that an administration building or something of that nature needs to be replaced.
Okay, thank you. I think we got time for one last question, and then you can have some closing statements. If you could change one thing about life here at Connestee Falls, not related to finances, what would that be, Janet?
Wow, that's a loaded question. The one thing that I would change here at Connestee Falls, you know, a lot of people know that I've been on the A&E committee for less than a year now, but I have learned so much. I would like to see more of our residents get involved with the committees at Connestee Falls. It's an eye-opener. And sometimes it's not always for the good what you learn, but it is I think it enriches us. And so I would like to see more of our residents become involved with our committees.
I have to agree with that completely. The fact that Janet and I are sitting here and we're going on to the board without a member vote being taken because there's no one else that's willing to run and volunteer for the board is really not a good situation for our community. People are very quick to complain about things. I do occasionally look at Nextdoor. Try not to too often in some of the sections on there, but people complain, but when it comes time to step up and do the job and do the work, they don't want to do it. This should be a robust contest for seats on the board, and there should be a number of people that are vying for that and look at it as an honor to be able to serve our wonderful community. And that's not just our board of directors, but that goes for permanent committees also, and some of the other things that support our infrastructure here. Volunteerism within the community has been declining, and that's not a good situation.
Well, we are fortunate that we have you two that are stepping up to run on the board. Take this opportunity for you can sum up your reason for running for the board and why we should vote for you if we had a vote. Go ahead, Jan.
Well, I think I'm personally grateful I didn't have to run for office. It took a little bit of the stress and pressure out of my life. But it is, Brian's right. If we had a more robust pool of people who would be willing to commit their time, I know it's tough. My husband and I are self-employed. As I mentioned, we're both professional photographers. And in a way, it's because of COVID that I have found myself in this seat, because we canceled all our workshops for this year. And I think our profession's going to look different going forward. So that gave me an opportunity to step up. I know that not everyone has the time to step up. But I'm very grateful to be sitting in Connestee Falls. I'm grateful to be sitting in this chair. I'm grateful that I'm going to be working with a good group of people on the board of directors. I really, truly feel that we are going to have, we have had excellent synergy among the board members. And I look forward to working with Brian. I don't know Brian well, but I'm very impressed hearing what he had to say tonight. So I just would ask our residents to give Brian and I a little bit of time to get up to speed. And I look forward to doing some great things. And I hope our community is going to be proud of that over the next 3 years.
Brian.
All right. I want to say that during my term on the board, I will certainly give careful consideration to anybody and everybody's ideas, suggestions, concerns that may come up. I don't hold hard and fast to any opinions. My mind can be changed on different things. I don't have frozen thoughts on various aspects and policies. We do have a wonderful board that gets along. They have disagreements, but they handle them in a very intelligent and collegial manner. I certainly want to see that continue to go on. This was my first time meeting Janet, and I'm really looking forward to working with her on the board. And I know most of the rest of the board members, and the community can really be proud and feel good about the people that are leading this community. They're very talented people. They're very concerned people. They really, really care about this community. And the same can be said about our administration staff. We're a very, very lucky community to have what we have.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Thanks to both of you for appearing today and for taking this office. Ordinarily, if we were doing one of these forums, I'd say it's time for a round of applause. So people can do that at home if you like.
Robert, you need a soundtrack.
Yeah, there we go. Thank you very much, and we are now adjourned.
Thank you, Jim.
Jim did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you. You guys were good.